Welcome to the Total Apex Fourth and Goal. I'm Andrew with our host Cody, Zach, Sean, Lawson. Um, but yeah, we're basically going to be recapping week 10 and previewing week 11. But I just thought in general, like this week was so weird. Like just the Sunday night football and then Monday night with the Rams not finishing off the Dolphins. Yeah, what do you guys think about this slate? We can start with Sean.
I thought for me, a couple things I liked. I'll speak from the fantasy point of view. Justin Herbert seems to be ascending. He's got a pretty good schedule coming up, and they're starting to throw the ball more, and he's starting to use him as a rusher. So for fantasy, he's starting to move himself up the ranks. I think he's like back on the radar. Um, they
Yeah,
weren't doing much. He was at 11 points over his first 7 weeks, and now he's at 15. I mean, he was at 15 or fewer, and he only had 6 touchdowns. But last week he went for 280 and 24 fantasy points, which would put him in obviously in the QB1. And then Miami Mostert, because I was doing some research for my DFS article I do for the company, and Mostert I think has one carry. He had no carries last week, 2 touches. So Achan's basically taking over that backfield. So those are two things for me that I picked up from this week, and it was a bad week for wide receiver ones.
yeah. Zach, you can touch on like the Steelers and I guess their win over the Commanders who play Thursday night.
More than anything, I think for anyone who has watched Steeler football for the last 10 years, this was a game that wouldn't have been won a lot by the teams in the last 3 or 4 years. We lost the turnover battle. We made some stupid, whether Mike Tomlin stands by him or not, that fake punt gave all the momentum away. There was a lot of specific calls during that game that any one of them would have sunk previous teams.
Mm-hmm.
This team has something special, and I know we have a lot of Steeler people on, so I'll only touch really quick on this. But Isaac Sewamalu, who has won a Super Bowl with the Eagles, specifically said that he sees things in this locker room and on this roster that you need to be a Super Bowl team. And that's something that no one, even in Pittsburgh, thought that we would be talking about coming into the season. This was supposed to be a get it right season. Let's win a playoff game. But if we're start talking about more, this is the week to prove it.
Yep.
Yeah, Lawson, you can piggyback off of that, and then your other thoughts from this week.
To really piggyback off of what he said, I was waiting ever since Russell Wilson got healthy and things like that. You know, he's been very efficient, especially in the fourth quarter. He's played a lot of good football. It doesn't look like he's lost his touch on his deep ball. My only thing that I wanted to see, if it's a pure drop back game like Najee in the run game, 21 carries for what was it, 63 yards? That's under 4 yards a clip. What's it going to look like when it's just a nonstop drop back game and only throwing the ball 28 times? I'm patiently waiting to see how's Russ going to look when he has to throw it 33 to 38 times. Now, with us going against the number one defense and stopping the run this week and ranked dead last in the NFL when it comes to in terms of pass defense, I wonder if kind of how Cincinnati took advantage of the short passing game being an extension of the run game, whether it be a lot of checkdowns to Najee or try and get TJ Warren in space or screens or wide receiver screens, maybe a couple touch passes. Just how can we continue to build on this positive, season? Because the back end of our schedule, we've all seen it. It is hell. Haven't played a single division game yet. We have all 6 division games right in front of us, and our only 2 non-division games are at Philly and the Chiefs at home. So I think it's going to be important over the next 3 weeks can we, over these next 2 to 3 weeks, can we come out of it with a winning record? Can we go 2-1, split with Baltimore? And even if we go 3-3 in the division, if we can split the 2 non-division games, we'll be in a good spot to take care of the AFC North.
And I think the big thing, the stretch that you're gonna find out, just to add to that, is they got 3 and 11 days with the
Yeah.
Ravens, Chiefs, and Eagles. Not to interrupt you, Austin. I'm sorry.
There
And
you go.
then two, I'm actually was someone. I don't know how you guys feel. I was a proponent for them getting Mike Williams. I had a feeling he was going to them. They kept losing out on other guys, but you saw what he can do. You can't teach what he has, the size, and I can't believe that he forgot to play out of football. I think he's going to help them a lot because they have small guys opposite Pickens.
Right.
They're 9 route guys, but Williams can. I really think he can alleviate some pressure off of Pickens, and then obviously the next thing is Pickens has taken off since in the 3 starts under Wilson. I think he's at 17 points a game, but he's in the wide receiver one conversation now, from fantasy as well.
Hmm.
Yeah. Cody, I know you were the Chicago Bears beat writer, but obviously you're the Raiders fan, so I don't want to talk about more bad Bears talk, but you can touch on that and I guess the other games from this past weekend.
Yeah, you bet. What a dumpster fire Chicago has burning live at Soldier Field. No, it's been a rough cover the past three couple weeks. I'm excited to be able to broaden my horizons a little bit, write about some other things. However, I have been a proponent all season long that Waldron is not getting the job done. So I was happy to see that they finally were able to make a change there. I don't quite think that switching to their passing game coordinator, calling the plays is going to be any sort of miraculous fix for the Bears. But the mission right now is to not psychologically break Caleb Williams if the damage hasn't been done already. So let's get his confidence back. Let's get the ball out of his hands quick. Let's help that struggling offensive line out by keeping the run game going with Swift and that short to intermediate passing game. And we'll see. I mean, they got a tough task this week. They got the Packers rolling into town. Packers are coming in off of a bye, fresh and angry, and the Bears are going to have a long afternoon at home.
Yeah. I guess overall, what do you guys think about the Lions Texans? I mean, there was 7 turnovers total in that game. I'm honestly surprised how close it got. Well, I guess I'm not
I
surprised.
don't know how they lost that game.
Yeah. I don't know. Did short? I mean, it may be a hiccup. It may be a one-off thing, but among Jared Goff's great games that we've seen him have, he's also had some pretty bad games, and I don't even know if it was the Texans defense. I think he was just missing throws. It was just I don't know, just a weird outing for them. I guess the other big thing was the Chiefs, what they did, and somehow coming out of that Denver game just unscathed. I don't know. I guess this is why I'm a very high proponent. Just I know they did that field goal to win the game, but I just feel these days in those high pressure moments stuff like that always happens. I feel
I don't know, and I don't know how you get a 36-yard field goal blocked. I mean, you don't. How do you can't kick it low enough to get it blocked? I mean, I don't understand. It's amazing. You see that on 47, 52 because they got to get it out low, but how does that even happen?
And as far as the Chiefs go, just a note on the Chiefs, I'm wondering if there might be some players on the Chiefs who are veteran NFL players who realize that it takes a certain kind of locker room, a certain kind of countenance to handle being 9-0, being 10-0, being 11-0. Because I remember, I think it was when the Broncos were making that kind of a run a bit ago, they were all said that first loss, while it hurt, there was a weight off their shoulders. We're like, oh, we don't have to worry about the 17-0. No, there's a pressure that starts building. And I'm wondering if it's better for the Steelers if they keep this up and that pressure keeps building and everyone is looking for any little reason, any chink, anything in the armor, that 0 stays in that loss column, that pressure builds. And I don't know if this specific Chiefs team, especially on the offense, is built to handle that.
Yeah. They're winning games, but man, I have not seen a convincing win yet, other than maybe week 1.
That's the
But
scariest thing. What if they wake up?
Mhm.
What if they
Yeah,
suddenly wake
exactly.
up so it's scary. That's not.
And when you win
I
Yeah,
don't
a
want to manifest it.
when you win a championship, you need a bit at any level at any sport. You always have to have an element of luck in there too. There's always element. And they just they were lucky to win that game. But when they say you make your own luck, but they got it going right now. So they just make enough plays to win, and that's really sometimes all you need.
yeah. There were a few. There were a few other close games like the Vikings Jaguars, like the Falcons Saints, the Niners Bucks. I think out of those, like I'm just surprised the Vikings just put out a bad outing. I did hear this is kind of like an obvious thing, but maybe we don't think about this. It's like even if they play in the dome, like the cold weather teams just don't do well in warmer states. I don't know how much I put into that, but like if Darnold plays like that again, I don't know, like in terms of like playoff potential of what they were like a few weeks ago, how to evaluate them. Like, what do you think about that, Cody?
Well, they're still an excellent team. Like
Yeah.
they're still a really good team.
Yep.
Like in terms of they have the record to show, okay, they're a good team. They have weapons. They have the head coach, left tackle, good quarterback, dominant defense. Like this is still a really, really good team. I understand that Sam Darnold had one of the worst games of his career, but they still found a way to win. And despite, the Jags having the ball down less than a touchdown, they forced that turnover. Now, we now know that Mac Jones you're going to be a career backup, buddy. Like, let's not get it twisted. If T-Law was healthy, maybe the Jags squeak out with the win, but he's not, and they didn't. There's a lot of moving parts to when it
Yeah,
comes to
that's
how
true.
to evaluate, the Vikings, because number one, they have the weapon, the protector, and left tackle, quarterback, a head coach / offensive coordinator that he's bought or in as to what Sam Darnold is. He's not mobile. He's accurate when he has time, and he knows he can fit and play within Kevin O'Connell's system, and that's what I think makes the Vikings one of the not really a surprise team, maybe record-wise, how good of a start they got off to, and how good his numbers looked. But I think that they're still a good team now. They're in a tough division. They're in one of, if not the toughest division in the NFL, who in the NFC North. But I think this is a team that I don't think anyone's going to want to see Justin Jefferson in a playoff game. I don't think anyone is going to want to see, that dominant defense that we saw over the course of the first 6, 7, 8 weeks of the NFL season.
And Cody, this division
I
really
agree
good.
with you. I agree with you that nobody wants to see Justin Jefferson in a playoff game, but I'm here to tell you, you're not going to see Justin Jefferson in a playoff game, and here's why. We're watching the live tank of Sam Darnold coming down the pipe right here. On a few podcasts earlier this year, I've already been saying Sam Darnold's going to start to Darnold pretty soon, and he's Darnold 2 weeks in a row now, maybe 3. This week, it's not going to get any easier. Last week, he was going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars pass defense that was ranked 30th. They give up over 261 yards a game, and he laid an egg. He was having inaccurate throws, and he has some of the best receiving weapons in the league at his disposal. This week, he's going to Nashville. He's playing a Titans pass defense that is ranked number 1. So if he had a tough week on the road in Jacksonville last week, what do you think is going to happen this week? I think this game between the Titans and the Vikings is going to be a defensive battle. 2 of the best defenses in the league going at it. The Titans defense, they are going to make Sam Darnold beat them. And it's going to be a matter of which team can run the football better. And I don't think that this Vikings team can withstand the NFC North. And I don't think they're going to be a playoff team come December.
To your point, Cody, how many? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This is a really quick point because the Vikings accidentally stumbled into one of my studies for a Steeler game coming up. I was looking at the Steelers Chiefs and looking at how well they did on sustained drives and all that. And I was looking at the best defense in the NFL at not allowing sustained drives is the Vikings. They have allowed only 8 drives that have gone 8 plays or more for a touchdown, and only 11 drives in the season for 70 yards or more to end in a touchdown. That is the best in the NFL on both points, better than the Steelers, better than the Chiefs. So this Vikings defense it's for real where it counts. And that isn't it. If you can stop teams from having sustained drives and to the best level of the NFL, Darnold can Darnold a little bit.
And well, I was just going to back up what Cody said, though. He very rarely, if ever, do you see it, not only the turnovers, but he had three turnovers, 2 in the end zone and 1 at the goal line, which is so. I mean, that you rarely ever get those. I mean, he basically wasted 3 drives and to come away with a win. Very fortunate. Like he really he nosedived. Like those throws were bad. Cody's absolutely right.
Yeah, I think I did see before, like the Vikings had been like 5-1 or what is it, 4-1 before, and then they kind of had a similar situation where they started to lose games as the schedule went on. We got a comment from Jordan, fellow Total Apex writer. But yeah, I agree. Just because I think the Vikings win an ugly game in Tennessee because they played kind of tough against the Chargers in the beginning, but it obviously went away later in the game. But yeah, let's go to the Thursday night game we have tomorrow with the Commanders and Eagles. This is going to be the first time they play, obviously. I'm kind of interested to see how Jane Daniels responds, like, again, kind of getting shut down by the Steelers offense, like how they do against the Eagles defense, which has improved this year. What do you think, Sean?
Well, a couple of things. One, Hurts is, like, from a fantasy perspective, he's just blowing up. He's taken off his last few weeks. So he's got them, their arrows pointing up. And if they win this game, I think they're not going to take a stranglehold on the division, but they're going to, they'll move out to about a game and a half. But I think right now, the way they're playing, it's their division to win. The key for them is to stay healthy with his weapons, because when he did have when Hurts did struggle earlier, he didn't have anybody but Goddard but he's got everybody pretty much back, so they're just dangerous. And with Barkley's having a resurgence, so they're looking pretty tough out there in the NFC. I think it's their division to take, but the Commanders are good. They probably have the best offensive line, in the NFL maybe. And they get B-Rob back. He's off the injury report. He's a full participant today, so they're going to get that weapon back. So
yeah,
I think it's going to be a little bit of a tough week, for the Commanders coming off that tough loss. Short week of preparation. Yeah, great news to see one of my favorite running backs in the entire league, Brian Robinson Jr., healthy, good to go. But he's also one of my sits of the week. Going up against the Eagles defense that allows the 5th fewest rushing yards in the league. And they have only allowed 6 touchdowns, right, through 9 games. So it could be tough sledding for both Jaden Daniels rushing the football and Brian Robinson. Eckler's coming off of the good game last week, filling in for him, a couple touchdowns. But I'm kind of fading all Commanders running backs this week. I think that Eagles defense is kind of coming on strong at the right time. They're getting more and more confidence in their rookie corners, and that's giving them more confidence to kind of stack the box and defend against the run a little bit. So I think that they're going to try to make Jaden Daniels beat him with his arm this Thursday in Philly. And
to tell you how well Hurts is playing in weeks 7 through 10, he's the QB1. That's even better than Lamar by just a tad, but he's really, in the last 3 weeks, he's the overall QB1, so he's really taken off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the other thing I want to point out, like, the funny thing is, like, they blew out the Cowboys last week, but I feel like they still have that, like, first quarter, like, they just slow start, like, they just don't get going right off the bat, or like Hurts like has an interception or fumble or something on someone's end on the offense. But I mean, do you think this is going to be a continued problem, like, throughout the season into the playoffs, that could cost them if they're playing better teams? What do you think, Lawson?
Well, I think that Kellen Moore has done an exceptional job over the past month.
Yeah.
He's really put, when you go bowling and they put the bumpers up. They've put the bumpers up. They haven't said, Jalen Hurts, please be Superman for us. They haven't asked him to do that. Instead of throwing the ball, the 35 to 38 times that he was, due to, they have so much talent on the offensive end. They have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. Saquon Barkley is a monster. So they have reduced him, throwing the ball from the 33 to 35 times he was to, can you be around 20 to 26 at the high mark, maybe very low 30s for an entire game, and feed the beast that is Saquon Barkley. We knew, Saquon going to a team that has an actual offensive line, like the Philadelphia Eagles, he's on the short list for Offensive Player of the Year through 10 weeks. And I think that for as good as the Commanders have played, and they have exceeded all the expectations that I have or had, I think that it's just a bad matchup for the Commanders. When you look at the three teams that they have faced that are 500 or higher, they've lost, and it's a tough loss to the Steelers by 1 point, and in which, I don't know, maybe Jane Daniels pulls out one more drive, but your rookie D tackle jumps off sides. And I think that the coaching edge definitely favors the Commanders. However, the Eagles have one of the best rosters top to bottom in the NFL. When you look at talent, they have it. 2 number 1 receivers, arguably the best back playing right now, one of the best offensive lines, and there hasn't been a quarterback, not named Lamar, that's been hotter than Jalen Hurts over the past month.
Yeah,
And
I
he's,
definitely agree with that. I definitely agree with that. If the Eagles are going to be the resurging team, like I think they could be like, as long as they stay kind of clean, and that just doesn't come back to bite them, because it almost did against the Jaguars. They should be relatively like dominant team like throughout the year. That there shouldn't be a problem. But yeah, Jordan was saying how the Commanders are gonna have tough time against the Eagles and their secondary. So yeah, we can move on to the Sunday Night Football game with the Bengals at Chargers. I'm very glad. I'm pretty sure this is the game they flexed into Sunday Night Football. I think it's just me, but I don't think the Bengals are, even Burrow throwing for like almost 500 yards and Chase going off with his monster statistics. Like, I think this Bengals team might be just done, and the Chargers could end their playoff hopes on Sunday night. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that that Chargers defense is pretty for real. Number 6 in the league in total defense. They've only allowed 12 total touchdowns on the year. That's pretty significant going up against an offense that's as explosive as the Bengals, and they're kind of known for getting those big splashy plays up over the top to chase. Higgins back playing, hopefully that'll help them out a lot. But man, you're kind of running out of things to play for if you're in Cincinnati. And, maybe they can go in there and grit out a win and try to salvage their season. But that Chargers team defense is really starting to gel nicely at the right time of the year. It's going to be a tall task for Cincinnati going over to LA.
And it's a great
and
spot. Go ahead. I'm sorry,
Ja'Marr Chase puts together that kind of performance, and you can't win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's no possible way. And I was on the opposite side, fantasy-wise, of Ja'Marr Chase. I did not have him on any team.
Same here.
I'd like to thank him for that. But yeah, no, these Bengals. Because the only reason I was pulling for the Bengals last week is to drag the Ravens back down into the muck. There's no reason for me to not want the Bengals to be absolutely destroyed. So, but I also know Chargers do charge them.
It's such a hard record to lose a game. Not continue.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to bring up, I don't know. The Bengals are just, I don't know why they didn't do this. Like, Chase hasn't been paid yet. Apparently T. Higgins publicly said I'm going to free agency next year or this off season. It's like, yeah, like there's kind of no point of this whole thing. Like it was either I felt like they should have traded T. Higgins or just re-signed him. Like they shouldn't have just waited this long. And then I know he had the injury that lasted a few weeks, but just not great timing, just in general. But yeah, I mean, what do you guys think of the Chargers team? Like Herbert's becoming. I mean, he was already like a top 10 quarterback talent anyway, but I think they're throwing the ball a little bit more, which
Yes, they are.
yeah, even with their lack of weapons, like they're actually coming along pretty well in like the scheme and everything. I mean, I think we say this about the Chargers every year, but with Jim Harbaugh, like could they make a playoff run potentially this year?
Oh, absolutely. When I brought up that no one wants to play a Minnesota defense or Justin Jefferson, no one, and even the Chiefs, no one's going to want to play this Chargers team in the playoffs. Their defense, legit. When the second I knew the Chargers were going to be something is when Jim Harbaugh, when they drafted Joe Alt, and he said, "Oh yeah, the offensive line is a weapon." I'm like, that is a early 2000s throwback to where we're going to pound the rock. We're going to take one of the most physical running backs from the Ravens in J.K. Dobbins last year and bring him to our team. And we saw early on, before he got dinged, he was a dominant running back. And we let's not get it twisted. Justin Herbert is one of the 10, just like you said, he's one of the 10 most talented quarterbacks in the NFL. The only thing was lack of weapons. Lad McConkey stepped up. Quentin Johnston stepped up after his bad rookie year last year. And it's essentially defensively, it's with the exact same roster as they had last year. And last year they were terrible.
And they used they brought along, obviously, I think Holly Edwards, because he came right in last week. I believe he started the game.
Mm-hmm.
So that adds to their
Oh,
running
yeah.
game. And in Herbert, he's in a great spot this week for fantasy. But like they've averaged the last three, he's averaging 33 pass attempts per game over the last four, up from 28. So he's up around, he's pushing 20 points a game. So he's pushing for the QB1 conversation, not overall, obviously, but as a QB1 in fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real quick,
One of the best offensive lines in football too. The Chargers have. I mean, you got Rashawn Slater, absolute dog. Joe Alt, stud. Bradley Bozeman at center. I mean, this is a top unit in the league for sure. Both in rushing and pass pro. So I think the Chargers could really make a playoff push. I don't think the Broncos over the long term of the season. I don't think they're really going to compete for a wild card spot coming out of the AFC West. The Raiders are done, full on tank mode there. So I think just mathematically here too, I think the Chargers do have a really good shot at putting together a little playoff run.
When you can run the ball in the cold weather, that helps.
For sure.
Yeah.
If they have to
Any-
travel, which they most likely have to be
anybody-
on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone who wasn't in the AFC North was confused about what the Chargers may have seen in J.K. Dobbins. Anyone who played him when he was healthy, very aware why people wanted J.K. Dobbins. I hated playing J.K. Dobbins. I really hated when he was healthy because that man was a beast and he carved up the Steelers more than once. So there's no surprise when he was doing this. And
I still don't understand during the Bengals playoff game with Tyler Huntley why they didn't use him more. I don't know if I can ever forgive Greg Roman for that.
Raven's gonna Raven.
But real quick, speaking of tanking teams, we got the Cowboys. I mean, they're basically done. Like, the Texans get Nico Collins back. This should be a walk in the park for the Texans. I mean, if the Texans drop this game, like that is very like concerning. I know we didn't touch on the Colts Jets yet, but they announced that Anthony Richardson is going to be starting over Flacco. So yeah, I'm not sure why they even benched him in the first place. Like, if it's only going to be for 2 games, we'll see. Yeah,
That's all it was.
The thing is, like, if the Texans somehow drop this game, like the Colts can get right back in it. So that is the one interesting thing. But yeah, we can get into like the actual meat and potatoes of this slate with the the Ravens at Steelers. Whoever wants to talk about it first can.
You got it. Take the floor.
Okay, this is. I don't care what team you cheer for. This is the absolute pinnacle of pure football. And because AFC North teams play each other in a microcosm. It does not matter what's going on outside. It doesn't matter what that team's record is. We play each other like that is the last football game that is ever going to happen on the planet. And we are both very good. It's not like in times before where one team was playing for honor and pride and the other. We're really good. And I'm not scared of this game, but I am more excited for this particular matchup than I have been in a long time. The only thing that's in the back of my mind that makes me really upset is there's Hard Knocks cameras all over the place. And that it has to, as much as he say it's not bothering him, that's under Mike Tomlin's skin. That is under some of these veterans' skin who wants to just focus on a season they didn't expect to be having. As entertaining as it is, and as much as the fan of me is going to be excited to finally see that glimpse, I'm genuinely worried about what that Hard Knocks is going to do for the players in the Steelers roster who might fall for that kind of a distraction.
Yeah, I can see that. I think that this game, it's really going to be more of a yardstick game more than anything. Okay, as a fan of the Steelers, I think there's a really good chance we could be in the AFC Championship game due to the defense is outstanding. The weapons are starting to pick up more. Russell's been great. However, I need to see how we've, because when the schedule was released, these last 8 games, this is going to be where is where the rubber meets the road. So I expect us to split with Baltimore, if not sweep them, because over the last 10 games, the record is 7-3, and Lamar, although he's been sensational against, 98% of the NFL, there's one team that he struggles against mightily. And for whatever reason, it's the Steelers. I don't know if it's the things we do schematically against him. I don't know if it's the magnitude of this game, because over the past 20 years, Steelers Ravens, that's headline, that's box office, that's Broadway. That's one of those things as to where I don't know if he hypes himself up too much. Now he does have a monster in Derrick Henry to help him take the load off his shoulders. Over the past, he hasn't had the weapons along the outside unless your name's Mark Andrews, and I just think that it's going to be a really physical game. These games have been said in the past to be a 2 chin strap game, so you better buckle both of them up because we don't like you. They don't like us. We respect each other, and it's gonna be a hard hitting game, and I can't wait for it. I'm super excited.
When I did some research, for the betting side, I write for it too, and I got a couple stats. I sort of knew this, but didn't know the numbers. Since Harbaugh got to the Ravens, I got to look, just make sure I'm saying this right. Favorites are 3 or more in this series are 2-18-3 against the spread, and Harbaugh himself, as the 3-point favorite, is 0-10-2 against the spread when favored by a field goal against the Steelers. And the Steelers are 26-3 as a home dog under Tomlin.
Yeah,
so,
Mike Tomlin.
I was, just looking from because like everybody knows, you guys, Steelers fans like me, it comes down usually to what a last play. I think it was a 2-point conversion that Watt wrecked last year. I know won, but they won. And then because the guy was wide open. Yeah. And it always comes down. How many times did it come down to a field goal at the buzzer when Roethlisberger was there?
Numerous.
One way or the other.
Extension. We all know. Yep.
Like literally whoever, someone's always kicked, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting just from a game plan standpoint, right? Because we think about this like old school, like the Bruise Bowl, right? Like Ravens, Steelers, 5 yards in a cloud of dust, run the football, old school style, right? Yeah, but things are changing, right? So just think about it from like a game plan perspective. What do you think the Steelers are going to do? Try to throw the ball against the last ranked pass defense in the entire league? or try to run the ball against, like the top rushing defense in the league. So
Absolutely.
it's going to look a little bit different, and it is going to
Uh-huh.
be the biggest test of the year for Russell Wilson, not because of the
Oh, for
talent
sure.
and the scheme of the Ravens defense, but because this is a matchup that he should exploit as a veteran quarterback in this position. So it's going to be a huge, just sort of like a mental test for him, and it kind of like a scheme test. What's Arthur going to draw up for Russell in the passing game? To try to exploit this Ravens defense. So it's going to be a little different. It's probably not going to be quite as heavy run as we're used to in the past. So take your pick, I suppose. If Tomlin's really 26-3 as a home dog, that's hard to bet against. But for whatever reason, I just kind of a gut call. I kind of like the Ravens to cover in this game.
And to
I
your
hope
point,
you're
Cody,
right, because
Oh wow.
the total's
Yeah,
at 48,
okay.
which is rare for a Steeler game.
I-
you know.
I agree with you, Cody, but I also know that we're dealing with a Mike Tomlin this season. That if he was standing in the room and 100 people out of 101 were saying you really shouldn't call a fake punt from inside your own 15 at this point in the game, and he's like, I'm gonna do it, and the same people's like, you really shouldn't run against one of the better run defenses of the NFL. It's like, I'm gonna do it. That's my concern, that this particular Mike Tomlin wants to run into the buzzsaw and let his guys learn that way. Now, and the thing is, it's worked out to this point. I mean, I wouldn't have switched out for Russell Wilson. I would have done a lot of things so I can't question it. I'm just saying, even though we know what we should do, Mike Tomlin might run the opposite direction this season.
That's why he's highly
I
compensated.
mean,
That's why they compensate.
Yep.
And he's a degenerate.
Yeah.
So
yeah, yeah, I saw that comment. The interesting thing is, if Najee Harris plays, because there's that. I mean, people say he suffered a high. Yeah,
he was held out. He was held out of practice today. For the record.
Right. I mean, we kind of saw like what the Bengals did, and they kind of used the check down options as the extension of the run game, and that just exploited that middle of the field. I mean, basically, Burrow was just throwing to either Chase or whoever was in the middle of the field. Like that's just where the weakest part of the defense is. But at the same time, like Russ normally doesn't throw in the middle of the field. Like he excelled with the moon balls to Pickens, and now you got Mike Williams and that sort of thing. So that will be an interesting matchup to watch. I do have George Pickens in a fantasy league, so I kind of need him to go absolutely off for me to win this
okay
week.
with it.
But yeah, I mean, if I was smart, I would just shadow cover Pickens with Marlon Humphrey. I mean, he's still going to get his, but I mean, if he's going against Brandon Stevens, yeah, it might be over pretty quick. Yeah, but in terms of like the Derrick Henry factor, I did see that against the Steelers when he was with the Titans, like he was averaging like probably close to 5 yards a carry. Do you think basically what they did against the Commanders, like a similar thing could work out against the
They need to
Ravens?
stack the box. Like there's no one weapon that Baltimore has that's, I mean, as great as Zay Flowers is, he's not he will not dominate this game. Welcome to Joey Porter Island. Population so like they can just you don't even have to roll coverage on Zay. Just stick Joey Porter on him. Now, the thing that I have and it's not even a big issue about Joey Porter. He's a young, tall, long, rangy player. He's also a very physical corner. So if Zay Flowers can, my thing is we saw Zay Flowers in the AFC Championship game last year kind of let the Chiefs DBs get under his skin, and force some penalties. So I think in my opinion, as good as Derrick Henry is, the Steelers, this is going to be I believe if the Steelers can limit the damage done on first and second down, can they make it 2nd and 7, 3rd and 6? I think that goes right into their game plan and what they want Lamar to do, which is pass the ball.
Yep. They got to keep him in the pocket. That's where you want him. 'Cause he gets outside the pockets when he goes crazy.
Mm-hmm.
2 quick points on that for anybody. I know a lot of people were really hard on Joey Porter about the penalties in the last game. That was an officiating crew that has been calling a record number of defensive pass interferences this year. That crew loves to call defensive pass interference. They went into it aware what Joey Porter did with his hands or watching specifically. So even though one absolutely he's having a very good season, but the Steelers know how to play Derrick Henry. In 3 games against the Steelers, he has a total of 182 yards.
Yeah, so
The Steelers know we know now. Granted, that was the Titans, Henry, but we know how to game plan against Derrick Henry. I'm not worried about that. I probably should be, but I'm not as worried as a lot of other people are. Just because it's Derrick Henry, and I remember every other time I got worried about Derrick Henry, the Steelers knew what they were doing.
We can bring Robert Spillane back to that goal line hit. We can get Bob Spillane back.
We got to land
that hurt.
Roberts for that. Yeah.
You guys remember that? That was unbelievable at the goal line. Remember? And
he immediately had to leave the game. Messed up his shoulder.
It was like running into a brick wall.
Yeah, no, I think the Raiders are going to keep Spillane. Thanks.
Yeah, we're good on inside linebackers. Right
yeah, to wrap up the Steelers Ravens. I mean, in terms of like how they've utilized George Pickens with Russell Wilson this year, like he's basically been a wide receiver 1 type player, and but do you think Russ will still be aggressive? Because the thing with Matt Gordon's defense this year is that like it's been bad, but it's because like for whatever reason, compared to last year, he's made things like much more complicated, and he's still disguising like too many blitzes for my liking. But they're not even getting home all the time. So in terms of like guys like Calvin Austin and Pat Freiermuth, they've had impact games here and there. What do you think about those guys showing up in this matchup?
It's going to need to be an X factor. I said on our podcast prep yesterday, the way the Steelers passing game works right now is it's George Pickens and an X factor from the rest of them. Mm-hmm. Any of the other receivers, that's an X factor that game. And if you have a bunch of people who can consistently be an X factor inconsistently, then weirdly enough, that's kind of an okay strategy to have, because if you can count on George Pickens and then you never know who else is going to show up, that's hard for opposing defenses to cover if you never really know. Okay, is Calvin Austin the one to cover this game? Because if we cover him, then what about this? And Roman Wilson might eventually be back for a late playoff, or I don't know. So it's a weird receiving thing, but anyone could go off at any time, along with George Pickens.
And I got to believe you'll see more of Mike Williams this week too, because he fits that. He profiles as the type of receiver you need opposite Pickens.
Yeah, I will say they probably will use Deontay Johnson like way more.
Yeah.
Like for this game, and also he's had like 10 days, so he's been like mostly a slot guy, if I recall. And they motion Zay Flowers like a lot. So if Joey Porter is mostly on Zay Flowers, then he might get kind of limited.
And Johnson.
But
sorry, Andrew. He had six. Yeah. He had six. He only had 6 snaps, I think, but he was targeted twice. So
right.
I think you'll see more of him as well.
Right. Yeah. They just haven't practiced because I think Lamar had like a back issue for carrying the team, so he hasn't practiced that much when the week they traded for him. So yeah, we'll see some sort of chemistry from them, hopefully. For the Chiefs Bills, I don't know. This game's like obviously like the game to watch on paper, but it could be kind of a slower paced game. Lawson, what do you think about that?
I had a feeling that Vegas or your odds makers would make the mistake and give people free money. That's exactly what they're doing. I don't see a world in which the Bills are
Yeah.
2-point favorites. I just if it amazes me as to how the Chiefs can continuously against this same opponent be underdogs. They were underdogs on the road in the playoffs last year. What happened? They won, and if it wasn't for a missed field goal and a fumble at the goal line and a lot of other things like that, maybe the outcome's different. I just think that if the Chiefs win, when they win this game, there's really nothing else for them to play for because they'll have a 4-game lead on the Bills. They'll have a 4-game lead on, Baltimore. So it's just going to be them coasting to an eventual number 1 seed. So there's no reason for me to think other than that, the Chiefs are going to win this game because the Chiefs always seem to win this game outside of, what was it, last year, 2 years ago when the Bills actually went into Arrowhead and won, other than a surprise like that. And what happened in that game? There was a offensive offsides call on what was one of the plays of that I've ever seen when, Travis Kelce did the lateral all the way across the field back.
Yeah.
13 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. And, there's a lot of things that for someone who has Josh Allen in fantasy, I love the matchup, even though statistically the Chiefs defense is one of the best top 3 in the NFL. I think that Josh is going to need to play more, of a Superman type role in this game using his legs, even though, no Keon Coleman again, who's already out with a wrist. Dalton Kincaid, questionable. Amari Cooper, questionable. 2, a wrist and a knee. So, there's a lot of things that are going into, the Chiefs' favor. I think, we saw them narrowly escape with the win at home against Denver. I think that they go into this game thinking, we win this, we basically, essentially, unless the Steelers chase them down, lock up the AFC.
And this, from a betting perspective, this is the public is smashing the Chiefs as you thought. So
Right.
Vegas needs. They call it a pros versus Joes game. Vegas going to need the Bills to cover, but it's been my experience when you look at a line, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for a reason. They know something. So I actually took the Bills in my parlay this week for the, when you look at a line, it doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't.
Okay.
There's no way,
Right.
with the injuries, but it's a pros versus
I think
Joes
that-
game. It's interesting to see what happens, but I mean, the line makes no sense. There's no way when would you ever see an undefeated team be an underdog at any point?
This year.
Yeah, it's
Honestly,
weird.
this particular game, I trust that. I look at this this particular Chiefs team. While they have got lucky, this is a very, very good Bills team. This is a very confident Josh Allen, and he likes the chance to show up Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. That's going to be big for him because it's always been, hey, it's Patrick Mahomes. Oh, it's Josh Allen. That he wants people to talk about him more, and beating an undefeated Patrick Mahomes like this. And I think they have a very good chance to. In fact, I'd be very, very surprised if the Chiefs made this a genuine game. I think the Bills could win by double digits.
Yeah, I like the Bills in this game as well. I think, you just got to think about it from a standpoint of who's got the most to gain. It's like, the Chiefs, they could lock up the AFC potentially, but also if the Bills get this win, then they put themselves in the conversation, right? So it's just like the Chiefs, it's just like we got our division locked up no matter what. We can try to sell out and win this game to try to, put a feather in the cap for the number 1 seed. But the Bills, they have a lot more to lose, right? So a lot more to gain, I should say. So I kind of like the motivation factor, and I think that's what a lot of like Vegas sharps, put a lot of emphasis on is which team is going to be more motivated to sell out and get the win. So in this game, I do think that team is the Bills at home, and really, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, they have a few things in common, and one of them is it doesn't matter who's catching the football. Right. All these injuries, hopefully Cooper plays, but, you got Kincaid out, you got, Coleman out, so it doesn't really matter who's catching the football for these guys because they're going to throw the ball at who's open. And if nobody's open, they're going to tuck and run and get you some rushing yards. So I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. I think the Chiefs are probably going to be better off losing this game in the long run, honestly. Like, just get the monkey off your back and, let the Bills have their regular season victory. We'll see you in the playoffs type of thing.
Yeah.
So I do like the Bills outright in this game.
I do, and a weird underlying storyline
I agree with
that connects to the Steelers that I like with this is I'm not one of those Steeler fans who gets excited when we get to play teams that are hamstrung by injuries or might not have. I want the best. I want us to play the best, so I know that if we win, at least we've beaten them. And if the Chiefs lose, they're going to come into our game more focused, or we're going to get a real Chiefs team. The Bills win in this game and carry that confidence into the playoffs. We're going to get a nice revenge game, which I think will make the playoffs with the Bills, and that we'll get the best of both teams. I want that. I seriously desire that as a Steelers fan. So not a lot of people agree with me on that. They want the hampered teams, but I want the best, and that works out for that. So, and this team this season, I think we can handle what they. Even if we don't win, we can give them more for their money.
Yeah. As we sign off, Sean,
I just want to say thank you, guys.
Real quick,
Andrew, for having me on, and Cody, it's nice to see you again, and nice to meet you guys. I appreciate everybody for graciously having me on. I enjoyed it.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate you, man.
Hey, guys, take care. I'll see you soon.
You guys can plug your socials real quick or plug anything else. Zach, I know you got the pod.
We have a Steelers Sanctuary podcast. We're actually branching out into a bunch of different segments, but we have a podcast every single Thursday and a recap the day after every single game. So, but we're trying to do an ESPN thing and have a bunch of little mini segments throughout the week too. So it's gonna look kind of haphazard for a bit. So just enjoy.
Yeah. Cody.
I'm gonna start writing a little bit more fantasy. I'm excited about that. So I'll be on Total Apex Fantasy site this week, working on an article now, and then you can follow me on social media and. Hopefully one of these days I'll get on some other podcasts too, right, Zach?
Yep, that's what we're trying for. We're trying to find that time to get you on, bud.
Yeah.
Check me out on Twitter at the @'s right. the mirroring cameras got me messed up. Right here, I should say. But I'm excited for week 11.
Yeah.
I'm excited to hopefully be on all these podcasts and talk, because I love talking ball. I love talking even if it's more than football, but football's always going to be the number one love. So I'm excited.
Oh yeah, we're about I think more than halfway through the season, so winding down, but all the best games are yet